guillotine, so we haven't any more opportunity to discuss this quasi-constitutional legislation in this place. It's a travesty. It's appalling. Canadians deserve better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There will be 5 minutes. There will be 5 minutes for questions and comments after the honourable member's speech. Following question period. Déclaration de député, statements by members.
The honourable member for Saint Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm rising today in the House to congratulate and thank all those organizations in my Saint Laurent riding that are helping and making a huge difference in the lives of thousands of families each year. These organizations complement each other and work together to provide various socio-economic and professional services that families in need may require. I therefore want to thank the Centre ABC de Saint Laurent, the Carré Saint Laurent, the Carrefour Jeunesse Emploi, the Maison des Familles, the HoC and women's centers, and all those organizations that work tirelessly in our beautiful riding of Saint Laurent. I will continue to work with you and to support your efforts to help the people of Saint Laurent. You are giving people in Saint Laurent the best chances of success in the future.
Member for Niagara West.
Mr. Speaker, I stand today to talk about courage, commitment, love, and a Canadian living abroad who exemplifies all three. Baden Earl has been caring for Wallene Alexis Earl, now 12 years old, since 2007, when her mother died tragically. Having crossed over from Haiti to the Dominican Republic illegally as a very young child, Wallene is now stateless and faces constant threat of deportation. Baden has been working to navigate the maze of paperwork and international bureaucracy necessary to adopt Wallene and bring her here safely to Canada. Their story has captured the hearts of many Canadians who have written letters in support of Wallene and Baden to MPs and officials, signed petitions, and donated their support and their efforts. I call on the Minister of Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship to do the right thing and bring Wallene home safely here to Canada.
The honourable member for Steveston, Richmond East.
Mr. Speaker, on November 10th, parishioners from St. Monica's Roman Catholic Church hosted an evening of music and praise to raise funds for a new, larger church building for the growing faith community at neighboring St. Paul's Church. The music provided by the youth choir, Psalm 98 Music Ministry, and Father Galea was both inspiring and edifying.
This was made possible thanks to the collaboration of two communities united by a common goal. I want to also thank all those who helped organize this activity and who invited me to participate in these festivities.
Speaker, I would like to wish all my friends at St. Paul's and St. Monica's parishes a very joyous and Merry Christmas.
The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, in honour of the 16 days of activism against gender violence, I want to highlight the commitment of organizations and municipalities in my riding to work against domestic abuse. The shelters and women's centres in my riding joined and started the Municipalities Allied Against Domestic Abuse campaign. The Clé sur la Porte and the Centre de Ressources Femmes put out the call. I am proud to announce that the vast majority of municipalities in Saint-Hyacinthe and Acton are now involved. Almost 1,000 individuals signed the petition against domestic violence thanks to the efforts of organizations like the local farmers groups COFAM and the Cercle des Fermières. I want to thank them for their commitment. It is hard to believe that domestic abuse is still a reality. In 2014, we want to end all forms of domestic abuse. And it is because of the commitments like I listed that I'm so proud to represent my riding.
Mr. Speaker, Pictou County lost its local music guru and tragically hip superfan, Carlton Monroe, after his battle with glioblastoma, the same illness that claimed the life of his music hero, Gord Downey. Carlton was a dedicated family man, a bright light on the East Coast music scene, and a personal friend. From his time at our local radio station, his work at the events department with the town of New Glasgow, or his efforts to build our biggest music festival at home, the Riverfront Jubilee, his commitment to our community and local musicians was unwavering. While his presence on stage this year at the Jubilee will certainly be missed, we know he's going to be there with us in spirit. Taryn, Noah, Nate, and Layla, thanks for sharing your husband and father with us. The Prime Minister said recently, Canada is less of a country without Gord. Well, I can tell you, Pictou County is a little bit less of a community without Carlton. We're going to miss you, buddy. Say hi to Gord.
Honourable member for Saskatoon University.
Mr. Speaker, over 40% of the correctional officers on duty at the Regional Psychiatric Centre in my riding in Saskatoon are on workers' compensation because they have been attacked by inmates. According to a story by reporter Dan Zakreski, officers at this Correctional Service of Canada facility have been continually assaulted by inmates, spitting, biting, stabbing officers with pen. Urine and feces have also been thrown. The escalation in violence is due to a change of policy in August regarding a practice called administrative segregation. As a result, violent inmates with serious mental illnesses can no longer be separated from the general population. In the CBC article, Union Rep James Bloomfield said, "The inmates that are assaulting us are right in front of us the next day. There are no repercussions for them." I call on the Minister of Public Safety to reverse this policy so that all CSC employees can work in a safe environment, safe for them and safe for the inmates they care for.
Honourable member for Fredericton.
Mr. Speaker, this government has been unreserved in our condemnation of Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights report on the situation of human rights in Crimea detailed grave human rights violations, including arbitrary arrests and detentions, enforced disappearances, ill treatment, and torture. We are deeply concerned by the arbitrary detentions and recent unwarranted searches of the homes of Crimean Tatars. Last week, the Crimean Tatars lost one of their leading voices in opposing the illegal annexation of Crimea, Vedi Kashka. We honor the memory of Vedi Kashka, whose life work was defending the interests of the Crimean Tatar people. We call on Russia to respect its obligations under international human rights and humanitarian law and to release all political prisoners. And we will continue to call for the protection of the rights of all communities in the Crimean Peninsula, including the Crimean Tatar community. Thank you.
Well said. Honourable member for Nickel Belt.
Mr. Speaker, today I am proud to rise and recognize my father, Gaëtan Serré, who used to be a member in this House. My father received the University's Award of Excellence for his lifelong dedication to his community and his country.
Kevin McCormick, President of Huntington University, for the Distinguished Award for announcing the creation of the Gaëtan Serré Scholarship, for which my father will be a student who embodies my father's passion for community and public service. Growing up, I learned firsthand how devoted my father was to the people, causes he served. He put service before self always and inspired me to follow in his footsteps and work hard for our community.
I'd like to thank my mother, Janine, who was married for 51 wonderful years, my wife, Lynn Loisel, my sister, Lynn, and Robert Gervais, and the grandchildren, Michel, Catherine, Marissa, Melody, and Mireille, who were by my side to celebrate the life of a great, fair man, full of love, a deacon, a husband, a father, and a grandfather, a role model.
Honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
On January 1st, the people of Slovakia will celebrate 25 years of being an independent nation. The Velvet Revolution, a non-violent transition of power, marked Slovakia becoming an independent nation. Since this day, Slovakia has grown as a democratic nation with an economy that is strong and growing while retaining and celebrating its natural beauty and cultural richness. It is a responsible and reliable partner making strong contributions to the global community. I want to thank the thousands of Slovak Canadians who have worked hard to make Canada a better place. Indeed, this year, with the help of the excellent diplomatic team from the Embassy of the Slovak Republic to Canada, the Slovak Canadian community held a celebration of tradition which attracted nearly 6,000 participants. As the chair of the Canada-Slovakia Friendship Group and someone with strong Slovak roots, I would like to wish all Slovaks and Slovak Canadians the best on this historic anniversary.
The member for West Vancouver Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country.
Mr. Speaker, Senate Bill S3 amends the Indian Act to eliminate sex-based inequities in registration. Private Member's Bill C-262 is an act to ensure that the laws of Canada are in harmony with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Truth and reconciliation is underway. Parliament is working in service of our aspirations for a revitalized Senate, the contributions of individual members of Parliament, and listening and acting with the Indigenous voices of Canada. In my riding, we too are acting in this spirit. On the Sunshine Coast, John and Nancy Deno led a dialogue circle of 30 of us, Shishal Nation and non-Indigenous people. Our time together was respectful and intense. The West Vancouver Memorial Library hosted Honoring Reconciliation, Hearing the Truth to a full house led by the Squamish Nation. These are important experiences, Canadians and Shishal, Canadians and Squamish, as truth and reconciliation enables us to reach our full potential. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
Honourable member for Whitby.
Mr. Speaker, during the transatlantic slave trade, tens of millions of African people were kidnapped, tortured, and murdered. The world committed to ensuring that we never again repeat these deplorable, abhorrent acts. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we were shocked and horrified to see the news from Libya of an active slave trade, the buying and selling of human beings in the harshest of conditions, the brutality of evil intentions that have robbed innocent people of their hopes and dreams, a true manifestation of the breaking of the human spirit. Canada condemns all forms of trafficking in persons, including the slave trade in Libya, and trafficking everywhere, practices that have always been criminal. We support the efforts of the Libyan Government of National Accord and the United Nations call for an investigation. Canada will continue its work to end human trafficking and bring those who prey on vulnerable people to justice. Thank you.
The honourable member for Edmonton Manning.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize an organization that works to create a more equitable and sustainable world by eliminating world poverty and supporting equality. Now in its 60th year, Grassroots International sends Canadian volunteers to developing countries to strengthen women's rights and security while fostering economic development. This model of volunteer cooperation recognizes the partnership between Canadian volunteers and grassroots organizations in other areas of the world. It is fitting that Crossroads International is here in Ottawa today as we mark International Volunteer Day, a day to celebrate the important role that we as Canadians contribute through in-kind donations both at home and abroad. Mr. Speaker, today I encourage all Canadians to find from within the principles of volunteerism, selflessness, and kindness, and to give the gift of time. Thank you.
Honourable member for Halifax.
100 years ago in 1917, two ships collided in Halifax Harbour. One, the SS Mont Blanc, was laden with high explosive destined for the Western Front of France. It caused the largest human-made explosion the world had ever known. 400 acres of my hometown were erased from the map, while shards of molten iron fell from the sky miles away. 2,000 people were killed and another 9,000 people were injured. Most of us know this is the story of the Halifax explosion. But there is another part of the story that we don't tell often enough. It's the part where our community came together after the explosion to rebuild our city. It's the story of our regeneration. In one famous photograph taken mere weeks after the explosion, amidst the devastation can be seen a poster nailed to the boarded-over shop windows. It reads, "We shall never rebuild Halifax unless everybody works." And we plucky Haligonians did rebuild Halifax. And a century later, there's no other place I'd rather call home, raise my daughter, or represent in Canada's Parliament.
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, Canadian men and women count on their pension in order to be able to retire with dignity. Unfortunately, in Canada, when big corporations go bankrupt, they steal from the pension money to pay the wealthy CEOs, banks, and investors first. We recently witnessed the liquidation of Sears Canada's employee pensions, where once again inadequate bankruptcy legislation let this company off the hook for its employees' pensions obligations. This is more than 3,000 employees throughout Canada, including 100 in Sherbrooke, who may have no money for their retirement. Mr. Speaker, it would be absolutely inconceivable that you or the PM's pension be taken away. So why is this government just sitting back with its arms crossed and watching workers in our riding and throughout Canada lose their pension when they could simply change the law to protect them? It is time that those elected by the people made decisions for the people.
Honourable member for North Okanagan, Shuswap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mischief and theft related to firefighting equipment are serious offences that can cause danger to lives of firefighters and Canadians they protect. I have introduced Private Members Bill C-365 to establish clear deterrents for these offences to protect firefighters who stand on guard 365 days a year. I'm truly grateful for the growing support this bill continues to receive from across Canada. Support from the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs, from the International Association of Firefighters Canada, the Canadian Volunteer Fire Services Association, the Fire Prevention Officers of BC, and support from firefighters and Canadians across Canada. We depend on our firefighters, so let's help them protect the equipment they depend on. Details on the bill and e-petitions 1373 can be found on my website and on the House of Commons website. I invite all Canadians to support Canadian firefighters by signing e-petition 1373 to help move this bill forward through the process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Alfred Pellan. Mr. Speaker, today on International Volunteer Day, I want to pay tribute to all volunteers for their selfless generosity that reflects the best of human nature. With dedication and compassion, they carry out selfless work. But they are the guardian angels of our society, and they bring comfort and compassion to all those who need it the most. To all these volunteers, I say, you are the pride of our communities. You reflect the best of Canadian values. You are the strength that lifts us up. You are the sap of life in our communities, spreading the energy that fuels our community's growth. Thank you over and over again.
And generosity is a reflection of our core values and our priceless gift to society. You deserve a standing ovation. Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, while the Finance Minister's ill-conceived tax plan has resoundingly been rejected by Canadians across the country, we are still less than a month away from full implementation of this process. And we don't know what these new rules will mean to hardworking Canadians. This government has proposed significant changes to the tax system for small businesses. Mr. Speaker, they don't know how it's going to impact them on January 1st. Is this fair?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, our government has been very clear. We believe that the campaign commitment we made to Canadians included greater tax fairness. Our government spent considerable time listening to Canadians, working with small business people. We outlined the details of a plan that we think is fair, that asks a very small percentage of people who have privately held corporations to pay a fair share of tax. Those details are understood, and I know that the member is very impatient for the upcoming federal budget, as all Canadians are, and I'm sure she'll look forward to those results.
Honourable Member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, that minister does not speak for me or for what I'm concerned about. What I am concerned about is this, is that there are details severely lacking in the implementation of these tax changes. I have great friends, Jim and Tina Soros. They run the best donaire place in Milton, Ontario, I will tell you. But they're going to wake up on January 1st of next year, and they're going to have no idea of what these changes are and how they impact their lives, Mr. Speaker. Will the Minister of Finance show business owners like Jim and Tina the respect they deserve and provide them the plan?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, because our government has such respect for the hard-working women and men who run small businesses like those referred to by my honourable colleague, we listened carefully to their concerns and responded in detail with a tax plan which we think is fair, which will mean that small business people who work hard to grow their businesses and create jobs will be treated fairly, and those who are amongst the wealthiest business owners will be asked to pay a fair share as well. And, Mr. Speaker, the member was a minister in a previous government. She knows that you don't announce budgetary measures until the Minister of Finance stands in this place with the budget.
Honourable. Order. Order. Member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, on November 1st, the Minister of Finance actually told the Senate committee that the details will be forthcoming. Perhaps the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans should actually review what his other ministers said, since he doesn't want to show up these days to answer questions in the House of Commons.
Member from Milton, I know, is aware that one does not call attention to the presence or absence of a member in the House, so I'd ask her to refrain from doing that and to put her questions.
I do apologize, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the interjection on that. The reality is it's a full month later and we still have zero details on what the implications are going to be of these tax changes that the Liberals are ramming through our system. These changes have real consequences on people, on their payroll, on how much rent they're going to pay on January 1st. They deserve a plan. I know the minister is a little bit preoccupied with his ethical lapses, but perhaps, maybe, he should step aside so we can get some real answers for Canadians.
Honourable Minister of Fisheries, Oceans and the Canadian Coast Guard.
Mr. Speaker, one thing my honourable colleague may like to tell the constituency referred to who operate the small business is that they will in fact be paying lower small business taxes thanks to the changes that this government made. And Mr. Speaker, another thing that my colleague, the Minister of Finance, has made clear, we're continuing to review the submissions we received over the extensive period of consultation, and we said that all of the details of these measures will be known in ample time before they would come into effect, and we intend to keep that commitment.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabasca. Mr. Speaker, in his tax reform, the Finance Minister announced worrisome tax changes for small business owners. These changes, which will have a negative impact on our economy, are slated for January 1st, 2018. That's in a few days. But there's one little problem. Entrepreneurs still haven't received any information. How can our hardworking job creators plan for the months ahead? With all his personal scandals, has the Finance Minister forgotten them? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, quite the contrary. I hope my colleague will remember that our small business people can plan on paying less tax next year as small business owners. This following our commitment in the last election campaign. This is very important for these business owners. And Mr. Speaker, as we have always said, we're beginning to finalize what we're going to do with the submissions we have, and all details will be made available before they are enforced and applied. The Honourable Member. It was 130 days ago that some of them learned that they would not be able to split their income, sprinkle their income. But nothing has been disclosed to them. Now, if the Minister of Finance put as much energy into supporting our business people as he does in managing his own finances, he could help small business people. If he's not able to do his job, as he should, let him do what he should have done for a long time and step down. The Honourable Minister of Fisheries. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we believe that the Finance Minister is doing an exceptional job. And we have had extraordinary economic results. We have created over 600,000 jobs, and most of these jobs are full-time jobs, and the employment rate has dropped to its lowest for a decade, something the Conservatives were never able to even dream about when they were in government. The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Neigette-Témiscouata-Les-Basques. Mr. Speaker, as was the case during the Prime Minister's last trip in Vietnam, we didn't know what the purpose of his trip to China was. It seems the Prime Minister is doing his best to give the lie to the idea that they were talking about free trade. If the government still intends to initiate free trade negotiations with China, why did he try to hide it from Canadians? The Honourable Minister.
Opens up markets. It allows our hard-working businesses to create good-paying middle-class jobs. And Canada is going to continue to embrace open and rule-based trade while working to ensure the gains from trade are broadly shared. Our ambitious trade agenda includes, among other initiatives, modernization of NAFTA, FTA negotiations with India, Pacific Alliance and CPTPP countries, as well as FTA exploratory discussions with China. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member. Mr. Speaker, when the Prime Minister was asked what he was doing to raise the question of human rights in China, he said, and I'm not joking, that he was holding press conferences with Canadian journalists. But newsflash, that's what the Prime Minister does on all of his trips. So apart from scrums, can the Prime Minister tell us what he's doing to talk about human rights in China? Any free trade treaty has to go through human rights. The honourable member. The promotion of human rights is one of our priorities in our dialogue with China. And we mention human rights on every possible or every opportunity. We want frank, honest dialogue. In working with China, we hope that we'll have more opportunities to have frank conversations about what is important to Canadians, including human rights.
Once again, zero transparency from this government on whether it has decided to launch formal negotiations with China. Just like the PM's trip to Vietnam, where Canadians were left to wonder if the TPP negotiations were on the agenda or not. Environmental protections, labour standards and human rights must be at the forefront of any trade and investment discussions, and any trade deal must support Canadian jobs. Will the Liberals commit to being clear with Canadians before they start official talks with China?
Honourable Minister of Employment.
Speaker, Canadians appreciate that moving forward on a trade agreement is no small feat and the process takes time. We also know that it's important to get it right and to show progress in discussions. With China, as with all our trading partners, we're committed to pursuing trade that benefits everyone, puts people first, reflects Canadian values, especially when it comes to the environment and labour and gender. And both countries look forward to continuing exploratory discussions towards a comprehensive trade agreement between Canada and China at a proper pace and in a responsible way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Essex.
Canadians are tired of this government's talking points. They need transparency. The Liberals have failed to take action to address steel dumping by Chinese companies, putting our sector at a dangerous disadvantage. And just this week, a paper ordered by Global Affairs reported that trade with China was responsible for the loss of 105,000 good-paying manufacturing jobs in Canada. This is a huge concern for Canadians. The report was clear on the job losses to China. What is this government's response?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, trade is vital to a growing economy. It's important that we have markets to sell our products to. That actually strengthens employers. It actually strengthens the opportunity for people to have a healthy middle class living and move strongly into the middle class. Mr. Speaker, we're confident in our approach, and these exploratory talks are beneficial to all Canadians. Thank you.
Order. I must remind the member for Essex that having asked the question, it's important not to intervene again until she has the floor. The
honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's 2 years on September 7, 2015, the Finance Minister tabled tax measures to make the rich pay more tax. The reality is that the rich are paying less tax, 1.2 billion, according to the department. Another fact. A week later, 680 shares of Morneau Chapelle were sold. Can the Minister of Finance, if this is a fact, can the Minister of Finance confirm that it was him who sold the shares? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Finance Minister never denied this. He talked about selling his shares when he came to Ottawa. I'm trying to understand my opposition colleagues' reasoning. And thank you for talking about the measures we talked about in 2015. We are going to be increasing taxes for the richest 1%. We, on this side of the House, are trying to help Canadians. I think perhaps he would like tax breaks for the richest. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, they're repeating the same words over and over again. He the department published a report saying that the richest Canadians were paying $1.2 billion less. These are facts, Mr. Speaker. Another fact is that after the election, he sold all these Mona Chappelle shares before this was introduced in the House. Now, did he sell them, yes or no? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I said it. I said this, and the Minister said this. He sold his shares in November and December 2015, or 2016 rather. I'm trying to understand what the Honourable Member is trying to say. We were raising taxes on the richest. How? Look at the link he's making, Mr. Speaker. It's not clear at all.
No matter how hard the Liberal spin doctors spin, the Finance Minister's ethical problems are not going away. There's just too much that Canadians know, but still so much that they don't know. They know the minister didn't put his assets in a blind trust, and he was found guilty for hiding assets in France. But what Canadians don't know is what else was he hiding in his other numbered companies where he was managing other assets, all for his own benefit. Canadians don't trust him. How can the Finance Minister continue in this role?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Finance Minister has always been fully transparent with the Ethics Commissioner, has worked with her from the very beginning, will continue to do so. He's announced it'd go even forward. But what I can see clearly, Mr. Speaker, is that the opposition is trying to hide the Finance Minister's record, where we've created close to 600,000 jobs in the last 2 years. We have the fastest growth in the G7. The unemployment rate is at its lowest in a decade. That's what they're trying to hide with a smear campaign against the Finance Minister.
Bravo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Liberty of Canada's CFO must be beyond reproach. However, this minister's ethical lapses has compromised his ability to keep the confidence of Canadians. He's been found guilty of breaching the law, and he's under investigation by the Ethics Commissioner for introducing legislation that he could benefit from. And now the Commissioner is looking into his November 2015 sale of Mona Chappelle shares. On top of all of this, we don't know what else is lurking in the shadow of this Finance Minister. Why won't the Finance Minister do the right thing and just step aside?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Monsieur le Président, le ministre des Finances et l'institution qui...
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance has talked to the Ethics Commissioner. He's been doing this since the beginning in order to respect the rules. And as to his record, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you that everyone on this side of the House is very proud to have a Finance Minister who's presided over the greatest growth in the G7, phenomenal growth, which is making things prosperous for our small business. And they were never able to do that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Crass act of demagoguery. This Minister of Finance targeted and scapegoated our small business people, accusing them of, quote, being a privileged few who, quote, used fancy accounting schemes to avoid paying their fair share, Mr. Speaker. Yet it was him that set up a company in Barbados. It was him that put his Toronto holdings in an Alberta numbered company, even though he lives in Ontario. And it was him that realized his capital gains before his own tax increases came into effect to avoid paying them himself. Why has he worked so hard to minimize his tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know that the member opposite knows a lot about demagoguery, so I won't put that into question. But I'm very proud that the Finance Minister has lowered the small business tax cut and will be lowering it to 9% in the next 2 years. The Finance Minister has worked very hard in the last 2 years to create a climate that's prosperous for entrepreneurs, where we have the fastest growth in the G7, 600,000 jobs created. That's a record we can all be proud of. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Carleton.
Well, the Finance Minister's record is working hard to minimize his own tax bill while maximizing everyone else's. Mr. Speaker, small businesses face massive changes to how they can pay their family members. Those changes come into effect in less than 4 weeks. And yet, this minister, because he's so up to his eyeballs managing his own personal financial scandals, has been wreaking havoc on the finances of those businesses. When will he come clean and tell them what their new rules will be?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're reviewing the submissions that we've received from Canadians. We've consulted from coast to coast, and the new proposals will be announced very shortly, Mr. Speaker. We've always said that we want to make sure that we avoid unintended consequences. We stand behind the family business model, and anyone who works in a business, a family member who legitimately works in a business, will be able to continue and be remunerated for it. We're behind small businesses. We're behind family businesses. We always be.
The Honourable Member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
There is a leaked CRA memo that shows eligibility for a disability tax credit has indeed changed for type 1 diabetes, spiking benefit rejections to 70% in 2017. Advocacy groups are saying that either the CRA lied to them or the minister has the wrong information. And remarkably, the minister continues to deny that changes have occurred. No more talking points. Will someone over there show some integrity, stand up, admit the mistake, and correct it?
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to assure all Canadians who benefit from the tax rebate for disabled persons that the eligibility criteria have not changed. Now, I'm still ready to hear the concerns of all Canadians, and this is why on November 23rd, I announced the return of the consultative committee, the advisory committee. We have had discussions with experts who will be taking part in this committee. We work with principles of equity for all those who would have a right to this tax rebate. The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Quote, we want to inform you of the changes to the procedures in therapeutic care that is essential for those with diabetes. Mr. Speaker, we can read this in an email sent to the officials at the CRA. What a lack of respect on the part of the minister who continues to try to make people believe that nothing has changed. Will the minister remedy this situation and, above all, apologize to people with diabetes who are still being refused? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I have always worked on behalf of vulnerable people as a social worker and as a minister. We have brought in measures to make the credit more accessible by reducing the forms they have to fill out, by bringing in super nurses who can help them fill these forms, and any person who wants to challenge a decision can do it by submitting medical information.
London.
Mr. Speaker, quote, well, you don't have it so bad. Everyone in Canada has a sob story, end quote. Can the Minister for Persons with Disabilities clarify what he meant by these words, which he recently used while meeting with a group of thalidomide patients?
Hello. Minister of Sport and Persons with Disabilities.
My heart goes out to thalidomide survivors. I know our government, led by the Minister of Health, is taking the concerns very seriously, and I'll continue to advocate on behalf of all Canadians with disabilities. As someone with a disability myself, it was certainly not my intention to offend anyone. While some of my comments were misconstrued, as soon as I learned that my comments were felt to be offensive, I immediately called the organization directly and apologized.
Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, quote, so you would probably have about 10 years left then now. That's good news for the Canadian government, unquote. Can the Minister for Persons with Disabilities please clarify what he meant when he said these words?
Wow.
Honourable Minister of Sport and Persons with Disabilities.
Again, Mr. Speaker, my heart goes out to the thalidomide survivors. I know our government, led by the Minister of Health, is taking these concerns very, very seriously, and I will continue to advocate on behalf of all Canadians with disabilities. As someone with a disability myself, it was certainly not my intention to offend anyone. While some of my comments were misconstrued, as soon as I learned my comments were felt to be offensive, I immediately called the organization directly and apologized.
Order. L'honorable député de McGuinty-Clairable.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-Lérable, Mr. Speaker, it's clear that the Prime Minister gave the Minister a clear mandate. Now that they have admitted that she's invented a revenue of $25 billion, Canadians are worried. In the real world, the Minister seems to have a mandate to work as a pickpocket for the Liberal government. Farmers, diabetics, and retail employees are worried. Who will be the next victims of the Liberal government? The Honourable Minister, Mr. Speaker, the government has committed to our agency administering, dealing with vulnerable people in a fair and accessible way. I have reinstated the Advisory Committee for Disabled Persons. Now, this committee was dissolved under the previous government. So people will benefit from their advice to increase the quality of services to them throughout Canada.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this government's been targeting small businesses and people with disabilities while patting itself on the back for supposedly recovering $25 billion from cheaters, including offshore shelters. But we now know that this government's $25 billion claim is false, and that they will never collect the money, and that they don't even know how much of that is from offshore evaders. When will the Liberals quit targeting disabled people, quit targeting the vulnerable, quit targeting and quit raising taxes, and stop misleading Canadians?
Honourable Minister, Mr. Speaker, our government is firmly committed to deal with tax evasion. We have recovery processes that are very effective. This was made possible after our historic interventions. Mr. Speaker, we're on the right road to recover this $25 billion after auditing is done of the past 3 years, which was not a priority for their government or for their finance minister.
Speaker, for those with depression, anxiety, and PTSD, Christmas can be a very stressful time. To add to this stress, the BC court ruled that governments do not owe veterans a sacred obligation, and the minister appears to agree. As we know, it was a legal fight that began under the Conservatives and continued with the Liberals in spite of their election promise to restore pensions. Will the minister show veterans some respect and compassion and announce his new pension option scheme before the House rises?
Minister of Veterans Affairs.
As I've said, Mr. Speaker, many times in this House, and as I did yesterday after the decision was rendered, we will be announcing our Pension for Life option before this House rises. This was the decision rendered yesterday was a difficult one for those who had put it forward in the courts. We understand that. We also appreciate their advocacy. We appreciate that they put the case forward on behalf of many veterans. We stand by our commitment to offer a Pension for Life option by the end of this calendar year.
Député de Beloeil-Chambly.
The Honourable Member for Beloeil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, our worst fears surrounding Bill C-23 came true on the weekend. Because a Canadian was subject to racial profiling at the Ottawa airport, she had to submit to an interrogation. It lasted hours by U.S. agents. And C-23 hasn't even yet been adopted. It's not into force yet.
Disregard for rights and privacy. How can the Liberals go ahead with giving more powers to American agents on Canadian soil?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, when a person crosses the border from Canada into the United States, they need to comply with the customs and immigration procedures of the United States. They can do that in the conventional manner in the United States after they've crossed the border, get in line and take your chances. Or you can do it in a pre-clearance environment before you cross the border, where you have the overall umbrella and protection of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
For Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Volunteers play a crucial role in Canadian society. In my riding of Kingston and the Islands, organizations like Martha's Table and St. Vincent de Paul volunteers help build healthy and socially inclusive communities. not just by their actions, but by the spirit of generosity that motivates them to create, support, and sustain non-profit and charitable organizations. Comme aujourd'hui est la journée internationale de bénévoles.
Because today is International Volunteer Day, could the Minister for Families, Children and Social Development tell the House how this government is recognizing volunteers?
Développement social.
The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, thank you. I'd like to thank the member for Kingston and the Islands for his remarkable work.
To take part in Canada's awards ceremony, where we will celebrate the contributions made by volunteers across Canada. This year is a special year, Mr. Speaker, because we are introducing Canada's Volunteer Awards alumni, past and present winners, who are giving and will be giving, have given and will be giving their valuable time to support our communities. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure everyone in this House will be with me to celebrate, to thank and congratulate our volunteers for their remarkable work.
Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, for months, this government insisted there was no change to the disability tax credit for people with diabetes. Yesterday, Diabetes Canada and JDRF released emails proving that CRA changed the way that it handled DTC claims for people with diabetes. Yesterday, the minister released a statement in which she said the emails were just an update to communications and that there was no change to how the claims were handled. Except that literally the second sentence of CRA's memo says the purpose is to better determine eligibility. How can the minister continue to mislead Canadians?
The Honourable Minister. I want to reassure all Canadians receiving the disability tax credit that the eligibility criteria have not changed, Mr. Speaker. If changes need to be made to the process at the agency, we will have discussions with experts who will participate on the Disability Advisory Committee that we are setting up. We will do this out of a principle of fairness for all beneficiaries of the credit, regardless of their disability, Mr. Speaker.
Both.
The Honourable Member for Both. Mr. Speaker, the minister keeps saying that there were no changes made to the eligibility criteria for people with type 1 diabetes. However, we've learned that senior officials in her own department confirmed that in most cases they need to deny the credit for type 1 diabetes sufferers. So my question for the minister is simple. Who's telling the truth? The senior officials or the minister? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I want to reiterate that I reassure all Canadians receiving the credit for persons with disabilities the criteria have not changed.
For Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, this minister continues to repeat old, tired talking points. We know that she is misleading this House, and type 1 diabetics deserve an answer.
Yes, they do.
Did the minister approve this memo, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, as a former social worker, I know full well what disability and a chronic disease can do to someone or to the family of the person suffering. On November 23rd, we reinstated the Disability Advisory Committee, Mr. Speaker. And if there are any changes that need to be made to the process at the agency, we will do so with the experts sitting around the table. We're going to work together and listen. All Canadians must receive the benefits of the credits that they are entitled to.
Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, I asked a direct question in this place, and there is only one of two choices here. The minister is either incompetent and unable to manage her own department, or she's complicit in this tax hike, and she owes type 1 diabetics right across this country an apology. Now, which is it, Mr. Speaker? Which is it?
The Honourable Minister for National Revenue.
Monsieur le Président, notre gouvernement.
Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to administering these benefits for persons with disabilities in a fair, transparent, and equitable way. people who are entitled to this credit, regardless of the disability they have. Mr. Speaker, for me, it is a priority that these people receive the credits they're entitled to. But I'd like to point out to the member opposite that they abolished the Disability Advisory Committee that we reinstated.
Alors.
Order, please.
Député de Saint-Hyacinthe.
The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot. 3 weeks from Christmas, federal officials aren't feeling very festive. Many public servants who are affected by the Phoenix pay system problems are fearing Christmas and having trouble making ends meet. But in 2015, the Liberals had promised to come up with a tangible solution to fix Phoenix. What have they done in the past 2 years? Not much. When will this government get down to work and ensure that Phoenix works for all public servants? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, allow me to inform the House that the resolution of this situation is my top priority. People are entitled to and deserve to receive the money they are to receive. This is a complex transaction, and the project was deemed to fail and exposed a number of risks. Mr. Speaker, we are currently taking steps that the previous government did not take.
Mr. Speaker, that kind of squad answer isn't good enough. Not good enough for the workers that held a rally this weekend saying they weren't excited for Christmas because they couldn't afford presents. Not good enough for the woman in Edmonton who's been told to repay $43,000 to Phoenix when she only makes $35,000. The minister's talking points are unacceptable. Will the minister commit to fixing Phoenix by next Christmas so that workers can at least enjoy that holiday?
Honourable Minister of Public Service.
Mr. Speaker, let me assure everyone that resolving this is our top priority. We understand that it is completely unacceptable that workers are not being paid. What we are asking of them is really unacceptable, and we are leaving no stone unturned. We are working on governance, we are working on technology, we are working with our partners, including unions, who are helping us find solutions, and we are working to improve communications with workers. Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that we are leaving no stone unturned.
Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
$10.5 million. That's what the Prime Minister paid to Omar Khadr. This is the same Prime Minister who used veterans and members of his own caucus as election props, promising that no veteran would have to fight their government in court. 9 months after the election, the Prime Minister restarted a lawsuit that resulted in yesterday's Equitas decision. Our veterans lost. Sadly, Canada's veterans now understand just how little value they have to the Liberals, except at election time, compared to a terrorist. Mr. Speaker, how can the Prime Minister justify handing over millions to Omar Khadr while fighting our veterans in court?
Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Many of the issues raised by the Equitas lawsuit are part of our mandate, part of my mandate specifically, and our government takes them very seriously. So seriously that we took immediate action when we got elected. We increased the disability award substantially. We increased the earnings loss benefits substantially. We invested in education, career transition, greater recognition for caregivers, better support for his families, mental health support. In fact, we've done more substantially on this file in 2 years than they did in 10.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, they did more there, keeping the veterans in court. Now, with a view to win over veterans during the election campaign in 2015, the Liberals promised to restore lifelong pension. They reiterated that promise last March. But the government continued to fight them in the court in order to not have to keep their promise. They're mocking our veterans, when at the same time they're paying a terrorist traitor. Why didn't the Prime Minister keep his promise? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, I stand before this House and I will tell you that on the promise that we have made the Canadians and to our veterans, that we will have an option on a monthly pension for life by the time this House rises. This side of the House will keep its promise. Thank you.
A member for Brantford Brant.
As much as this minister would like to paper over it, this Prime Minister took our veterans to court. They also promised to reverse the Martin Liberals' cancelling of lifelong pensions for injured veterans. After getting elected, pension became pension option. And after beating veterans in court yesterday, it was reduced to pension benefit option. Will veterans get a lifetime pension as promised, or will the Liberals just keep playing a show game with the existing benefits?
The Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You'd almost think that the other side wasn't aware of the fact that they were the government for the past 10 years. Let me be very clear. It was that government that took Equitas to court. It was that government that offered lump sum payments. All sides on this House did agree, though, to a new Veterans Charter, and the idea behind it was that it would be a living tree, that we would address veterans' needs as they arise. Guess what? It withered on the vine for 10 years. We have done more for veterans in 2 years, substantially more.
Honourable member for Malpeque.
Mr. Speaker, those of us on the government side, ran on a platform of investing in Canadians, creating jobs and growing the economy. And in fact, last week, reports coming out have in fact shown that the economy is doing very well, meaning more Canadians are actually working in productive work and adding to the economy. But, Mr. Speaker, there are others who are not participating in that economy, are still looking for work. So my question is to the Minister of Employment. Can she tell me what she's going to do to build on that success?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to thank my colleague from Malpeque for his question and his tireless work on behalf of Canadians. We ran on a platform to invest in Canadians, to create jobs, and to support a thriving middle class. And Canada has created more than 600,000 jobs since October 2015. We have the lowest unemployment rate in a decade. In November alone, we created 80,000 jobs, and this is the hard work of Canadians, along with a government that supports them to do their absolute best. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Edmonton Riverbend.
Mr. Speaker, Bell and several other media conglomerates have announced a proposal to create a mandatory blocking system for websites that they have arbitrarily determined are inappropriate. However, the blocking process would take place with little to no oversight by our courts. This plan has internet and net neutrality experts concerned. Will this government let these multi-billion-dollar companies control Canadians' internet access?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Economic Development.
As our minister has made very clear, we support the principle of net neutrality, where Canadians have access to the content of their choice in accordance with Canadian laws. Mr. Speaker, I can assure my honourable colleague and friend that net neutrality is the critical issue of our times, much like freedom of the press and freedom of expression came before it. That's why our government will continue to support a strong net neutrality framework through the CRTC.
Honourable member for Port Moody, Coquitlam.
In September, thousands of farmed Atlantic salmon escaped from a U.S. fish farm infesting BC waters. In October, coastal First Nations occupied 2 marine harvest farms because they never agreed to open net salmon farms in their traditional territories. Last week, the world witnessed a graphic video of fish farms spewing virus-laden fish blood directly into the wild salmon migration routes. Scientific analysis shows it contains PRV, which threatens wild salmon with infection. Enough is enough. When will the minister get these disease-ridden farm salmon out of BC waters?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said a number of times in this House and I've shared with my colleagues on this side,
of the House of Commons from British Columbia and in numerous discussions with the provincial government. We understand the concern that people have, British Columbians have, with respect to wild Pacific salmon stocks. We also understand that our government has a responsibility to work with the province, to work with the industry, to ensure that all of the necessary reviews, audits, all of the necessary compliance measures are in place, including rigorous science, Mr. Speaker. That's what we'll continue to do, and we'll work with Indigenous communities in doing that as well.
The honourable member for Dartmouth Cole Harbour.
Mr. Speaker, 100 years ago in Halifax Harbour on December 6, 2017, two ships known as the Emo and the Mont Blanc collided. The explosion that ensued left nearly 2,000 dead, 9,000 injured, and 25,000 homeless. The Mi'kmaq village of Turtle Grove, near Shannon Park, Dartmouth, was completely leveled. To this day, it is a day that remains etched in our city's collective memory. In this year of Canada 150, can the Minister of Canadian Heritage please update this House on what is being done to commemorate this solemn anniversary?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague from Dartmouth Cole Harbour for his important question. Canada 150 is an important moment to remember the events that have shaped us as a country. Our government is proud to have invested just under $1 million to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Halifax explosion. This includes the creation of a memorial space, and this also includes the installation of 12 plaques across the country, connecting the many stories of this disaster. Let us continue to ensure that the true legacy of this event is the resilience of the people of Halifax, Dartmouth, in the face of unspeakable tragedy. Thank you.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
2 more mass graves filled with the bodies of Yazidis have been unearthed in Iraq. Over a year ago, MPs unanimously voted to support a UN recommendation to preserve and document Yazidi mass grave sites. The Prime Minister has told us what he's doing to provide reintegration support to ISIS terrorists back in Canada. Will he tell us what he's specifically doing to expedite prosecution of ISIS terrorists at the International Criminal Court to bring justice to the victims of ISIS-perpetrated genocide?
Parliament, the Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, this topic was on the agenda for the G7 security ministers when we met a few weeks ago in Italy, and we agreed that we all needed to work very carefully together to collect and preserve all of the evidence from the battlefield and to make sure that that evidence was in a form in which it could be used in all courts, whether international or domestic, anywhere around the world, to make sure that the interests of justice were served.
Député de Mirabel.
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Former Avios workers lost their jobs when Air Canada moved them, and they took legal action, but the government simply changed the act. And now the government is forcing them to pay back the EI they received when they lost their jobs with the government's complicity. This makes no sense. Will the minister wipe out their debts and put in place a recovery process? The Honourable Minister for Social Development. Mr. Speaker, thank you. I'm happy to have an opportunity to say just how aware this government is aware of the situation facing Avios workers is. We have monitored it closely. They are entitled to respect by the public service, and I would invite them to contact members of this House to ensure that this respect is fully complied with. The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, the Navy needs 3 supply ships to operate. It ordered 3 from C-SPAN, but we've learned that the shipyard won't be able to deliver a single one before 2027. But operational requirements don't change, so they'll need some temporary resupply ships in the meantime. And an internal memo to the Deputy Minister shows this. Is the Minister of National Defence sacrificing national security so he doesn't have to admit that the other shipyards can't deliver on this requirement and that they should be dealing with Davy? They can't deliver the equipment that's required?
Mr. Speaker, because of the we lost our 2 joint supply ships, there was a capability gap that was created. Hence the reason why 2 joint supply ships are being built. But because of the in terms of the timeline that it's taken, interim gap that needed to be filled, and Davie Shipyard is filling that interim capability gap, and we thank them for that service. Thank you.
The honourable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith is rising on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Because the abandoned vessel problem is so urgent, and to give a chance to insert as early as possible the solutions from coastal communities that used to be embedded in my unvotable bill C-352, I ask for unanimous consent to move the following motion, seconded by the member for Cowichan-Malahat-Langford. That, notwithstanding any standing order or usual practice of the House, Bill C-64, an act respecting wrecks, abandoned or dilapidated or hazardous vessels and salvage operations, be deemed read a second time and referred to the Standing Committee on Transport, Infrastructure and Communities. Thank you.
Does the honourable member have unanimous consent of the House to move the motion? There is no unanimous consent. Honourable député.
The honourable member for Louise-Haleron. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Earlier, when I put a question, I mentioned a report. So, out of, on principle, I would like to be able to table this report of 2017 on page